All right, in the short amount of time left, I have a surprise for you, Kit.
What is it?
I've taken some
Turn
advice.
around and open. No.
There's a box behind you. Don't imagine how it got there. I told you I had to stay on the couch. It's not the first time in the last couple months that for some reason my hip and back situation has kept me there for a little bit of time. I've burned some of that time getting through almost all of a suggestion that you had. No, all. Yes, all. As of last night. I watched all of those WB monster movies.
Oh, the Godzilla.
Godzilla, Godzilla
Universe.
King of the Monsters, Kong Skull Island, and Godzilla vs. Kong.
Well, you know I love them. What did you think?
I think that Gareth Edwards has made 2 movies that I have seen and one that I haven't. And the 2 that I have seen are really good movies. That Star Wars movie he made is great. And that Godzilla movie he made is great. Like, I remember seeing the trailers for that, especially the scene where they do the Halo jump. I don't need to say what they do, but they do the Halo jump. And I saw that in a trailer for that movie, and I said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Why would you Halo jump into a monster? This movie's going to be dumb. And I never watched it. And now that I've seen that scene, I think that it's genius. That movie had style. It had cinematography. It had a plot that made a heck of a lot of sense. It had a criminally underused Ken Watanabe who still kicked it out of the park when put on the screen. Everything about that set up an amazing universe for them to make monster movies in. That was a really fun movie to watch, and I will probably watch it again. I thought it was great. It made a lot of sense, and they did like justice to an idea that is ridiculous. And one of the things that I'll talk about the other ones, they stuck to their guns about stuff in that movie. If they said it, it was true. Kong Skull Island, really good. Very funny in parts. John C. Reilly does a great job. Loki does a great job. That movie also made some sense, especially if you obviously know very early on that what's his name, John Goodman is clearly lying about everything. I guess some people may not have known that. I don't know. But John Goodman, obviously, great. Sam Jackson, great. I don't know how you could get a better cast for a movie than Kong Skull Island. And they set up stuff that makes a lot of sense later in that Godzilla vs. Kong. I really wish Kong had gotten another movie in between. Them jumping to Godzilla vs. Kong and being like, it's been 10 years. And Kong lives in a cage, kind of. And you're like, wait, what? Hold on. What happened here? Slow down. Man, that King of the Monsters movie, though, makes everything a mess, doesn't it?
How so?
Where they're like, hey, Monarch has been containing all sorts of monsters all over the globe. We've got gazillions of dollars in infinite funding to be find monsters in the ice. This woman who you've never met before has created some sort of communication device. Her really terribly acted husband and underutilized Millie Bobby Brown don't have anything to do except run around. They have to undo half that stuff to get through Godzilla vs. Kong. What a weird thing. And like they took all the rules from Godzilla that Gareth Edwards like very carefully set up how Godzilla works, right? Like that script, whoever wrote that script, they very carefully lined out exactly how the world works. You can easily throw Ghidorah into that mix, and that's enough, I think. That and the whole like Godzilla's gonna go to Hollow Earth, and then your brain goes, oh cool, that's from Kong. But instead they added in like, oh, Monarch's been maintaining monsters all over the globe, and also we've got Mothra, and there's like a lava bird that makes people fly backwards instead of forwards or whatever. They just forget physics halfway through the movie. Just completely. People, literally a bird flats its wings and you would go down, but instead people get sucked up in the air. How does that? And then you have to go with Godzilla is now so nuclear powered that he turns red and just explodes all over the globe and destroys all of Boston, which is still standing after he explodes as a nuclear bomb multiple times. I don't get it. That movie's a mess. I didn't like it. I think you might have told me to skip it now that I'm remembering it.
I certainly didn't like that one as much as Godzilla versus Kong, but I didn't have as many problems with it as you did.
I fell asleep 3 times watching that movie. It took me 3 days. It took me 3 days to watch it. I fell asleep 3 times, and it was always while that dad was talking.
I do think that of the 4, that's the easiest one. I mean, I really like if you just start watching Godzilla versus Kong, I don't think that you need to like. I think you can get that movie if that's the only one you've ever watched.
No, I mean,
but
I'm glad I watched it. If you're gonna
skip one of the 4, I think that King of the Monsters is the one that's the easiest.
You have to watch it because otherwise you're like, who's Ghidorah and why do I care? I mean,
they give you enough in Godzilla versus Kong.
I know, it just doesn't make much sense. Why? Also, okay, so Godzilla versus Kong. The way that it was explained to me was that they went to the center of the earth and there's this whole backstory in the center of the earth. Thank God that did not last very long because it didn't make much sense when you're like, wait, Godzilla is like their god, but also not. They also fight him. And they stole his back plates to make axes, but they used them to charge them on a thing made of a Godzilla on the floor. Mess. All of it's a mess. And then they're like, we realize this is a mess. Let's get out of here. Let's go back to the surface where things make sense. Mechagodzilla was awesome. Godzilla shooting the weird axe that had to have a backstory because how would you get an axe that had a backstory? Was pretty cool. You know what would have been cool? Take away the whole Hollow Earth thing. Have Kong rip a back plate off of Godzilla and turn it into an axe. That would have been sweet.
That would have been cool.
That would have been so cool because then you could change Godzilla's model for the whatever other movies you do, and he's got a missing back plate. And then you know, like if you're in the know, you've seen that movie. You know, like he's got the Godzilla versus Kong was good. If I had to rank them, I think that Gareth Edwards one is the best, followed by the Kong one, followed by Godzilla versus Kong, and then In the Trash Can is where the other one goes.
Fair enough.
Ken, have you seen any of these movies?
None. I'm not a kaiju guy.
You're not a kaiju guy.
I'm a mecha guy.
I know.
Yeah. If you want to put a mecha in there to blow them up,
there is a mecha in the fourth one. Mecha
yes,
Godzilla.
I've been made aware, and I'm like 2 things fighty. I'm good. I get it.
See, but that's why Garrett. So you should watch that first one with the Godzilla because that's what I thought. Also, I was like, I don't care. This looks dumb. And then Kit, who I respect deeply, said, no, they're really good actually. And I said, okay, I like kaiju in general, but if there's nothing for them to do, like in older Godzilla movies, what was that one with the eggs? You know, that one with Matthew Broderick.
That's a tough part too. Is like when you're like, depending on where your entry points are, like it just wasn't a great entry point if you're there for certain reasons, and they essentially just become raptors at that point, and there's all kinds of
it's bad. Like that Matthew Broderick one is bad, and it's bad because they have nothing to do with Godzilla, right? Kit disagrees. He likes that one too.
Oh no, that wasn't. No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think I probably like it the best of the 3 of us, but it's not. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as these MonsterVerse movies or whatever Kaijuverse, whatever this is. The shared universe.
They forget the lessons in that Kaijuverse movie in the first one and even in the second one. So like Godzilla and Kong have a lesson, which is that the people are interesting, and in the third one, it's literally just about what you're talking about. It's like monsters fighty while people run around running from monsters fighty and then running towards monsters fighty. And in the meantime, we're going to have this woman, I say woman, not in so much as it matters that it's a woman, but it's she's the only character that does anything in that movie other than Ken Watanabe, who does one thing, and then that's spoilers, that's the end of him doing things.
I think
but literally she's the only one in the whole movie, and that's why I'm talking about it. She's the only one in the movie that does anything until Millie Brown does one thing at the end, and then the mother takes back over in doing things. So like that's the problem with that one. Really, is it's embodied by the father in that movie, who literally could not be in that movie, and it would not change the movie at all. He's in it so that he can take over in the next movie. And then they realized that people hated him, and they wrote him out of the next movie. He has 3 scenes, literally. And the scenes are what's my daughter doing? What's my daughter doing? Where's my daughter and what's she doing? Those are his 3 scenes in the following film. And I've delivered them with more emotion than he did, by the way. I nailed it.
I think that
watch that Gareth Edwards one, because my point was that you should watch that one because it's not about Godzilla really at all.
I think it comes down to like, and you were saying earlier, at first you're like, I don't have time for this stuff, or not. You're like, it just sounds dumb. I'm like, it's not even that it sounds dumb sometimes, but just a matter of like, I still have, to our earlier points of the list, like I still have to watch Witcher. I haven't watched that. I haven't watched X amount of other things. So I'm like, do I want to? I'm already not invested in the concept of just like big monsters fighty. So it's like I'd rather watch Witcher, which does sound more interesting to me. And so, and to the comment of like, they made the humans interesting. I mean, if you applied that to Transformers, it's like, that's the only thing they did. And that made those movies worse. Is like, look, don't you want more Shia LaBeouf? And you're like, no, I want the monsters. I want the giant robots to be the stars.
But the giant robots can talk. So that's different entirely, right? There's nothing that Godzilla can do really. There's nothing that Kong can do really.
But my point is just that if you put the rights, you can shift the focus wherever you need, as long as the script behind it is good. So it's like, if the framing of just saying like, oh well, they got it right by making the humans important, like it just comes down to the writing, and I think that's where it could be the problems with. If you had problems with some of the later movies, the writers just didn't nail it. Like they didn't make you care about the right characters.
Yeah, I guess you could say the right characters matter, right? And if the right characters are the Transformers, that's fine.
If they're the humans or if they're the Autobots.
It's just
we're there to.
I say Kong can't talk, but maybe he can, right, kid?
Yep, he knows sign language. So
did he really?
Yes, Kong learned sign language.
I'm shaking my head up and down.
There's a little girl who's deaf that
teaches Kong sign language.
That teaches him sign language.
Yeah. Does he go, Amy, scared? Amy, scared?
Amy, want banana?
Yeah. Anyone else? Congo fans?
Yeah, of course we're Congo fans.
Fans in quotations.
What are you talking about? That's a fantastic film.
It's been forever since I've gone back to watch it. I do remember there's some ridiculousness to it, and that's kind of all that I took away from it in the end. I haven't revisited, so it's not on my rewatchable list. Like,
yeah, I haven't watched it since the 90s.
Yeah, it does have Ernie Hudson though. So
10 years probably.
I enjoyed it in the 90s, but I think this is the first time that I've thought about it this century. So
fair enough.
Okay,
especially at least this year.
I have watched it in the last 10 years. I guarantee it, because I know it popped up on Netflix once, and I was like, Congo, yeah, give me that Tim Curry.
That's another plus. Like I said, I haven't gone back, and it's like I just remembered just some of the like we're trying to find diamonds to make lasers, and it's like, wait, what? I don't fully okay. Like I said, they had Ernie Hudson, so they had I was going to be on board. They brought in a Ghostbuster, and Tim Curry's awesome too. Space. I just think of that now.
I sincerely, Kit, appreciated you making me with my arm twisted behind my back on a couch watch them. I really,
that's why you had the back pain.
Yes, that's why. There you go. No,
I'm glad you liked them.
I discovered two things. One, that they were fun, and that movies should be fun sometimes. And I'm trying to practice more using I'm stealing this phrase from somebody else, but practicing more using my good time hat and leaving things alone. Like, if I can get past certain things, which are easier to get past, right? Something like that third movie, the King of the Monsters movie, where people literally fly the wrong direction from wind generated, that stuff, I have to take it off. And I'm like, okay, now you've lost me.
Yeah.
But the other three, I definitely it was firmly on my head, and I had a great time with my good time beanie. It's to your point, Ken. Maybe this is the good lead out. Yeah, you have to feel like you have to catch up all the time. The Witcher's out there. The next season of The Expanse has already started. I'm behind now on Star Trek Prodigy. I haven't watched any of Star Trek Discovery. We haven't even talked about He-Man Revelation 2, which we all watched. I haven't watched Hawkeye yet. There's a new season, Always Sunny. I'm in the middle of The Witcher. The Matrix 4 I haven't watched yet. I stopped watching Cowboy Bebop in the middle. There's a whole Wheel of Time series. I have that only one list. That's one list. I haven't finished two lists on my phone.
That the Wheel of Time, that's going to take them 20, 25 years to finish that series. So you've got time to wait on that one.
I've got 14 years.
The books aren't finished yet, right?
They are. Yeah.
I think that they are, but there's a lot of them.
I believe Mr. Sanderson finished them off.
Okay.
I think there are 14 total.
But not the original writer, though.
No, he died.
Right?
He died during the publishing of the series.
The last two books were completed by Sanderson.
And the funny part about that, so I read The Eye of the World. That's the first one, right? The Eye of the World?
Uh-huh.
I read The Eye of the World. I had, in like the mid-90s, I had finished reading The Lord of the Rings and was in a fantasy mood. And so I went to my local bookstore and said, hey, do you have anything that's kind of Lord of the Rings-ish that's good? And the sales clerk said, here, read The Eye of the World. This is newer. It's really cool. I like it. It's got a lot of like fantasy, but also kind of like Dune. And I was like, well, I like Dune too, so I'll read this. And I read it. I thought it was okay. I liked it enough that I went back and I was like, hey, is there a sequel? And at this point he was like, oh yeah, there's like 5 books in the series so far. And I was like, 5 and so far? All right, I'm done. That's too many books for me.
You've lost me, Robert Jordan.
Right. Like that's and they're not even done and there's 5 books. I didn't like there's like 20 books now. Like I just think it's funny that like I backed out then when there were like 6 total books and they weren't done and I'm like that's way too much investment of my time. Like I don't have enough time for that.
You take it easy.
10. You know how much time I have? Like
my point.
Eye of the World's a thick book.
Yeah, they get thinner as they go. As the plot threads come into a funnel, they get quicker as reads, I think. My point in listing all of that stuff was not to show you how many things I'm so cool about having wanted to watch. It's because half of that stuff, like you mentioned, you have to watch with somebody else because they're into it. Half of that stuff I'm prioritizing over other things. And the idea that you have to finish it all now is honestly kind of stressful if you don't stop and say, what do I want to watch? And like, well, some nights I don't want to sit there and think about oh God, hold on. There's a character in Hawkeye. This one's I got to get out my sheet of characters I remember from the Marvel MCU and see what this one reference in this. I don't know if this is true in Hawkeye or whatever, but it was true in Loki and other things, right? Where you think I have to remember all these things. It's okay once in a while to step back and say like, I'm going to watch this Godzilla movie and see if it's dumb. And it wasn't dumb.
It was kind of dumb. You just sort of have to, that's part of the fun.
It is, absolutely, for some of those. I think that, honestly, I really honestly believe that Gareth Edwards one is just a good movie. Like the scene with them trying to bring the nuke on the train in the fog is very good, very well shot, very thought out. It's good stuff.
If you were looking forward to Pacific Rim 2, then Godzilla vs. Kong is a movie you should watch. If you were not looking forward to Pacific Rim 2, then you can probably skip it.
But I think maybe that Godzilla first movie is actually a good movie overall.
It is the one that definitely tries the hardest to be like art.
Yeah.
And as opposed to the other ones, which are definitely right, which are solid movies, but don't make that attempt really.
My point is,
it's not in the same way.
Somebody give Gareth Edwards another movie, please. Please tell me that guy hasn't retired after 2 films.
Just Rogue 2. He's like, I'm ready for that.
I never saw his first movie, which was some sort of
monster. It's called Monsters.
Monster
movie. It's very. So I watched Godzilla and Monsters right before Rogue One came out because I didn't know anything about Gareth Edwards and I wanted to watch his movies, and there were only 2 of them. So Monsters came out first, and you can definitely see why. Like it's way more low budget than Godzilla, but you can definitely see from that one it's very similar in sort of. You can see after you watch Monsters, you can see why the studio was like, "Hey, we watched your movie, and we're going to make a Godzilla movie. Would you like to do it?" Because like it really is sort of like he sort of made a movie about kaiju, but he didn't have the rights to any of the big names, and he didn't have the budget to make. So he can't really show the monsters. And so he has to take a lot of it. He has to do a lot of creative things to make a kaiju movie without being able to really show the monsters because he doesn't have the money
that first Cloverfield movie.
Yeah, and so, but you can watch it and definitely see why whoever made Godzilla, whatever studio, said, "Hey, why don't you come make a Godzilla movie for us?" Yeah,
nice.
Or if they told him, "Hey, we've got $2 million for you to make a kaiju movie as a test." To see if you can make Godzilla for us. Here, go.
I want to go track it down then.
It's not a bad movie at all. I enjoyed Monsters. I thought it was good. It's definitely not the special effects showcase that the others are.
I don't need that.
But it's definitely an enjoyable watch.
Nice. Awesome. Well, we'll leave it there then. Go find the movie Monsters. It's not a CGI showcase. That's your review of Book of Boba Fett. There you go.
Yes. I would like to say though that to go back to Book of Boba before we end.
I had 2 questions. I was trying to remember. One was like I wanted to ask because do you watch Witcher?
No.
Okay. I wanted to ask him about.
I don't have anything against it. I just haven't. I haven't played the game, and there's so much other stuff to watch that.
100%.
At some point, I might get around to it, but I mean, honestly, at this point, if I didn't get to it in the desolate wasteland of 2020, I'm probably never going to. So
it's different for you though. That's kind of the talk though too about like the list is like when you're part of a couple or even a father, because in your viewing time is also not your own. Is that Witcher? Although I've heard great things about it, I haven't played the games, but I do like Henry Cavill. I like him, and I watched the first episode. I'm like, okay, fantasy stuff, it's good. So I want to get into it, like because I'm like, okay, cool, and I like how he's such a nerd. Like he's a huge fan of the stuff. And last night, I was talking with some friends, and they said like, oh yeah, the second season veers off course from like the original material. I'm like, that doesn't sound like that was. Andy, did you play the Witcher games before the TV series?
I started Witcher 2 and I never finished it. Witcher 3 is supposed to be really, really good, but I haven't played it yet.
Same. Some friends last night, we were talking about different things, and they were saying like the Witcher season 2 veers off from the lore. And I'm like, I was surprised by that considering how big a fan Henry Cavill is.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
And I'm like, but not knowing the lore, I'm like, I'll just take their word for it for now and then ask other people who I know maybe have a better, or at least they have a better relationship with the series.
So yes, I know some of the lore that they have dropped, which is some characters die that have not died in the books at this point. And there's an extra show, if you're interested in watching it, between season 1 and season 2, there's the animated Witcher movie. And if you like season 1 enough, you should probably watch that movie. Okay. Because it explains some characters that are in season 2 and their backstory. And that way you get them early. They took 1 or 2 characters out. They kill off a friend of Geralt's early. And it's explained by one of the writers online why they did it. And it's because in season 1 and in season 2, Geralt is already emotionally at a different point than he is in the books. He can handle things emotionally that he has to learn to handle in the books, because there's a lot more time in the books for one of the characters to grow up. And that time is like this in the show, because you have a person you have a person that is growing at an age, right? And they start her later so that she can do things in season 2 that she would do 10 or 20 years later in the story. So everything's so compressed that they cut out some stuff and some characters, as far as I know so far. I'm only in the middle of it, so I don't know if they've changed more than that. But that's the stuff that I know off the top that they changed already from reading this thread on Twitter from a writer that's on the show that I like reading stuff that she says.
That's reasonable. Yeah, that makes sense. That's enough information just so I can kind of like, okay, so I can kind of gauge my understanding, because
there's been some drama around that change and the changes in making some of the other characters have more screen time than they do at this point in the books. But I think those people are missing the fact that a lot of stuff is probably going to start to get muddled and rearranged starting in season 3, because these people are all older than they are. There's much more time in a book. You can jump 1 year, 2 years.
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
That's that.
You can do a 5-year jump, and then if with a kid, like you're talking about just people age, like, oh, well, we're now here. It's like, they don't look any older.
So like there's a kid character in the show, and my first introduction to her was in the Witcher card game. I'd never seen her before, and in the Witcher, Gwent, and in the Witcher card game, she's got like gray streaks in her hair. So, oh, okay. Anyway, Kit, you were gonna say something before I rudely let you go, but the dog has to go when she has to go. So.
I was just going to say how happy I am with the Book of Boba, and that we have a show where they are going into, it's drawing from a whole lot of different things. Some of them I caught, some of them I saw later online that people were pointing out, like the shot when he goes to make his gaffy stick of the like wreckage is like straight out of like some of the concept art for I think A New Hope. I
didn't know that.
And when the Tuskens are running down to attack the train, that's like a straight up shot from Lawrence of Arabia, and like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's packed into this show, but that we're getting overall it's very much a Western show, and you can see the Tuskens as a stand-in for the Native Americans, and that we're getting something about Tusken culture besides just that they attack Luke and then they kidnap Shmi and try and kill her.
It's definitely a question I got while we were watching it was, wait a minute, my wonderful spouse has exposure to the live action stuff and that's it, right? And some of the live action stuff is so long ago for her that she doesn't remember it. So wait, weren't the Tuskens bad guys in one of these? I said, yeah. So in, episode 4, you see them and they attack Luke. Oh, okay. And then in episode 2, they kidnap his mom. Oh, okay. And it's like, this is now, you like Tuskens now, the show. And so a lot of people are online, I think, were wondering about, well, how does this fit with the other versions of Tuskens you've seen before? And I was like, oh, well, maybe the show will explore that, or maybe it won't. But at least now
we're getting it from their side now. Yeah.
And at least now there's a, hey, look, they were just minding their own business and this train rolled up on them and started shooting them,
Yeah. Much like the trains of the West, they would just shoot buffalo from the train and just drive on by just for sport.
Yeah. So if they, if a different tribe of Tuskens had a worse experience, would they kidnap some woman from a farm? Yeah, they probably would. I don't know.
And that we live in a world where we have a show where Boba is living with the Tuskens, and they give him a lizard that climbs up into his brain, and he goes on a psychedelic vision quest where he sees a dead tree and has a vision, and then makes his own gaffy stick. And I don't know. I love this show. I am enjoying it so much. I like the theme song. I downloaded the theme song and I've been listening to it nonstop.
You just like people yelling at you over and over again. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Just over and over.
And
that's what your day is like now.
Yes, I really like Tamara Morrison. I'm glad that he's getting it's not like he hasn't been working in the last 15 years, but he's getting. I'm glad that he's back in Star Wars. I'm glad we're getting a lot of him, and I feel like he's really knocking it out of the park when he's sitting on the bike teaching them how to ride bikes, and he's like, "It's like a bantha." Yeah, I'm like, man, this is fantastic. I want to make a shirt that's like,
it's like a bantha,
a silhouette of him sitting on a bike, and it just says like, "It's like a bantha," or "like a bantha." That's what I want. I'm really enjoying this show. I didn't know that. I didn't think that I would like this show. Like, I was looking forward to the show, but I didn't think that I would like this show through 2 episodes more than The Mandalorian. And I am really
I'm not
enjoying
sure that I
show.
like it more than The Mandalorian yet. I think that The Mandalorian has a very consistent thesis on what it wanted to be from the beginning, how it was going to be shot, how it was going to be, like, every single piece of it was laid out exactly what type of show it was going to be, where it was going to go, how it was going to, like, every single piece of that one seems meticulously planned. I'm not sure this has the same feeling. It definitely has more of a Robert Rodriguez action movie feel to it. There's a lot more of that to me, where like the plots are simpler, right? Like that whole episode with the train was just like, how does Boba teach them how to rob a train? The movie.
He's like Tatonka.
But with a vision quest.
With a vision quest in the middle of it. Yeah. There's not plot developing, and it's not bad. It's really good. All of it's really good. Just don't know that at this point I would say I liked it more than 2 episodes of The Mandalorian.
For Andy too, I don't know if you saw the image I shared in chat.
No.
I had thought of this because for those listening at home, in Kit's background, he has a frame piece of McQuarrie artwork. Probably not original. I'm guessing a print. He didn't actually get a piece from Ralph McQuarrie, but there's I think that's a 3PO in the background you have there, Kit.
Oh, on the desk there?
Yeah, the desk.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the sleeve of the Ralph McQuarrie. They, like, I don't know, 4 years ago, they put out 2 really nice thick books of McQuarrie concept art, and that's the like dust sleeve.
Nice.
On the front, yeah.
Yeah, but that's really good. So a piece of the artwork that was done for the original Tusken Raiders was then adapted into a shot for the Book of Boba, and I shared that in our group chat. We may share it online. Check us out at We Were Gamers.
It's like a third of the shot. I'm putting my hand in front of it. It's like a third of the shot is the same. It's exactly the same framing, though. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, so they're like, okay, well, that inspired that shot, which I thought was really cool. They're like, okay, we can kind of, pull from this. And I love these. It's like seeing the ice spiders in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they were originally just like kind of a weird thing. Not weird. They were a thing in a McQuarrie piece of art. And they're like, let's kind of update that and let's bring that into this. And it's like, yeah, we did see some spiders in Rebels, but they like getting that kind of like, no, let's touch back in with our original concepts of what Star Wars was. And it's fun. I think I also noticed something that they decided to do in this show that I don't know if you guys noticed too, was emptiness. A lot, like, look at this image you shared, or go back and think of like Jabba's palace, or the dune sands, or even Mos Espa when he's walking around on the street in Mos Espa. There's a lot of empty space until the huts show up and everybody's there and the whole street's full or whatever. But think about when he's just walking in. Yeah, they show shots of the Trandoshans. They show shots of other people in the crowds, but it's not like a crowded space. Mm-hmm. A lot of this is empty. If you saw this scene in the remade version by George Lucas, that there would be 3 banthas in the background, some sort of weird animal bouncing up and down on them. It would all be CG. Like, all of a sudden, towards the middle and end of Star Wars by Lucas, every shot became extra full of motion and CG. Like, every inch of it had to be full.
And the original look of Tatooine, especially Mos Eisley, was like empty desert, sand, building. That's it. Right? Like the cantina. Yeah, it had people in it, but the outside the cantina, deserty. The Baru and Lars farm, deserty, like empty. And that struck me when they filmed this. It's empty. This thing he walks off to go make his gaffy stick is just out in the middle of nowhere, and it's empty. And I thought that was a legitimate choice. It struck me as a legitimate choice to not be adding CG banthas in the background of every shot that had Tusken Raiders in it, to not be adding CG things walking around behind Boba in the middle of the street while he's talking to people. Seemed like a conscious choice.
It's definitely fair. And I think there is, I mean, some people may look back too and think like, is this, I'm curious too, how much of this was like his vision, but also how much of this is kind of like COVID conditions. Cause like those two in the shot we're thinking of, there's two people in masks, clearly 5 feet apart or 6 feet apart. Mm-hmm. But again to this, but it also fits for, you're very right. It does fit for Tatooine. Tatooine is a desolate place.
There was a direct reference to masks. Did you notice? The assassins' masks are COVID masks with other masks on top of them. Yeah.
I just thought of them as night creepers from G.I. Joe because they are very closely designed to a night creeper. If you're a G.I. Joe fan, I think it just happens to be happenstance. So that you're like, well, when you get that color set and those pieces of armor,
but it's shaped. Well, it's shaped exactly the same. It's got the same exact.
Right. Well, they probably shot it that like whatever the costume was gonna be. I'm sure that they were like, all right, put a COVID mask underneath this because like we can't give Tamura COVID. So like and have
you've got Tamura.
I'm sure that there was a lot of that Ming-Na during the filming of this. Yeah.
And Ming-Na doesn't have a mask on under her helmet either. So.
But they're standing back to back, or they're standing 5 feet apart when they're walking down the street, or I'm sure that a lot of that was them trying to work within the restrictions of the state of the world at the time.
Yeah.
So,
but I do agree with Andy. I do think that there are also choices like to his point. They could have dropped in a CG bantha behind there.
Oh, I meant the live action actors. Yeah.
But that's still a choice to not do that. So it's like I think it's a little bit of little column A, little column B. But I do appreciate it. I do like that it does add to that feel of like they are out in the middle of nowhere. They're not necessarily near. They're not near Mos Espa. Like it's a trek to get in there, which is kind of the reason when they make all the Pikes walk back. They're like, no, we'll give you water. Just walk in a straight line. Go right there. You'll get back to safety, but bring back money because you owe us. I love that part too. It's like, are you carrying spice? And he's like,
oh yeah.
What spice? I don't. What does it even look like?
Boom. That's spice. This fell out of the crate.
But he was so great at that, where he's like drinking out of the coconut or the black melon, and he's like, "This is not looking good for you." Like he was. I don't know. I just love Tamura Morrison. So, and I before we go, I was so glad to see Max Rebo and Tigran Dan together in the bar. In Garza's bar. That was I was so happy to see that. And now they were in the second episode. Apparently they're just around. They're like the house band. So I am they are really knocking it out of the park for me on this show.
Now we were talking about too, like because Andy took a little bit of time to catch up to the show, but like did they survive? And like he rewatched it, and like they were on the sail barge. Like they weren't they didn't stay back in the palace. It wasn't like they're like, okay, they're gonna go do their thing, let's go and pack up and head back into town. Like they were in the thick of it, and they made it out too. Like that one skiff that went back for more milk.
It's possible a bunch of people ditched. Apparently, according to this show, you can just walk around the desert for days on end. No matter how you feel. I just Boba and Fennec he says he's a crime lord. He walked all the way from Jabba's palace to Mos Espa and back.
Like, I don't know that he walked the whole way. He was just walking through the street. He could. I'm sure he took a bike.
They walked the whole way. They walk all the way back with the prisoner. Remember, she walks. Everyone in Tatooine is just walking everywhere, and no one's dehydrated.
They had a couple black melons with them. What do you want?
Yeah. No, it's so I have no problem believing everyone jumped off the sail barge and walked 3 days through the desert and they're all fine.
But I'm glad Max Rebo lived. But I still in my head want to have the Max Rebo Robot Chicken ending where he's just an old jazz singer. Like, oh, they're making Max walk through the desert. This is ridiculous. Robot Chicken, like, there's so many things that are like in my head because of Robot Chicken. They just did a good job. Yeah,
I think it was a good 2 episodes, and like I said at the beginning, we have at least 2 separate ideas of where it could be headed, and I think that is good and interesting to be less defined with a character that I think maybe you don't want to define too quickly, given the history and how much people have invested their personal feelings into, somebody that is mostly in general a blank canvas. I'm sure many people have read the Legend stuff, but many people haven't, and so for them, he's whatever they've seen on the screen. And for more than a majority, more than a minority, the majority, maybe they've only seen, whatever he's been in live action. So
that's fair.
It'll be worthwhile for them to take their time, especially if they're going to try and transition him into something that he has not shown himself to be.
It's also interesting too that the timing they did it at. They did like the 30-minute episode first and then the hour-long episode. Like they were like, no, we're pacing it like this because we're going to, and it worked. It definitely, I think at the end of episode 1, I was like, I'm still wanting more. This doesn't feel like enough. Yeah. But at the end of the second, I'm like, okay, they kept stuff over for this episode so that it was paced better by the end of the second. So I'm okay. I give them some more leeway now. I'll see where things go. Like,
yep. Well, until next time, we'll finish Boba probably before we talk again. So we'll have a lot to talk about, I would think.
I disagree. I think we will meet again soon for Cobra Kai, and that might be before the end of Book of Boba.
I was all prepared to my brain was still working through like, what's he gonna disagree about? I don't understand. And then Cobra Kai. Yes. I'm about halfway done, so I'm enjoying it so far. But it's definitely got a different tone than the last couple seasons.
It's fair.
So far, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to know any spoilers.
No, we'll hold it. We'll hold it. We just wrapped it up, and it was. I'm like, let's get into it.
The payoff. Okay, there is a payoff. Good. I like it. All right, that's all I need to know. Don't know more. Mm-hmm. Plus, we need Kareem for that one. So
there you go.
Yep. Until then, podcast wewergamers.com. Go there. I'm gonna do my level best. We talked about it at the beginning. I think I'm gonna cut out the production minute because nobody cares. But if I didn't, you heard about some new artwork ideas. So maybe I'll integrate some of that for this one. I'm going to work hard on that. So we'll see.
Cool. I like it.
It's more time, less render time, more edit time. But it should work out. It'll be fun. Until next time, damn well who.
May the force be with you.
Always.